What if demons were real? In the Nephilim video, we left off with the flood. The giants, by the book of Enoch, were 3,000 ells tall. The giants consumed everything humanity produced. The cries of the earth went up to heaven. The flood was sent. The flood killed the bodies. But the book of Enoch says something that most modern readers skip right past. Chapter 15, verse 8. The spirits of the giants, the book says, were not destroyed with their bodies. The spirits of the giants were released into the world. The spirits of the giants became the demons. This is the link. This is the sentence the whole trilogy is built on. The Nephilim are the parents. The giants are the children who survived. The demons are what the children's spirits became when the flood killed the bodies. The book of Enoch is the first text in the Western tradition to make this connection. The book of Enoch, written in stages between 300 BCE and 100 BCE, says the demons are not fallen angels. The book of Enoch says the demons are the residue of the flood. The book of Enoch says the demons are the spirits of beings who were half angel, half human, and who were killed by water, but who would not stay dead. If the book of Enoch is right, then the demons were not created as demons. The demons were created as something else. The something else was killed. The something else left a residue. The residue is the thing that has haunted the world ever since. What if demons were real? The English word demon comes from the Greek daimon. The Greek daimon did not originally mean an evil spirit. The Greek daimon meant a lesser divinity, a being between gods and men, a being that could be good or bad, a being whose nature was not fixed. The Mesopotamian tradition in the 16th century BCE used two words. The first was utukku, a spirit of the dead that could possess the living. The second was gallu, a spirit that dragged the living down to the underworld. The cuneiform tablets give instructions for warding off both. The instructions are operational. The instructions, by the standards of the people who wrote them, were real. The Hebrew Bible uses three words. The first is shed, a spirit of the dead, mentioned in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. The second is seirim, a hairy demon of the wilderness, mentioned in Isaiah. The third is lilith, a night demon, mentioned once, in Isaiah 34:14. The King James translated lilith as screech owl. The Hebrew word, in the original text, was a name. The name was the name of a being. The being, by the standards of the tradition, was a demon. The Septuagint, the Greek Old Testament from the 3rd century BCE, uses the word daimonion for many of these. The word daimonion becomes, in the New Testament, the word that gets translated into English as demon. The translation is exact. The translation, by the standards of the older tradition, is a compression. It takes a category of being that included both good and bad, and turns it into a category of being that is only bad. The word, in every ancient language, was a word for a being that was not quite a god and not quite a ghost. The being, in every ancient language, was a being that could be met. The book of Tobit, in the 3rd century BCE, gives the first detailed story of a named demon. The demon is Asmodeus. Asmodeus, by the book, killed 7 husbands of a woman named Sarah on their wedding nights. Asmodeus, by the book, was driven away by the smell of a fish's liver burned on hot coals. The story was preserved in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The story was preserved in the Apocrypha. The story is the earliest full account we have of a named demon being confronted by name. The book of Enoch, in the same century, names Azazel. Azazel, by the book, was the angel who taught humanity metalwork and makeup. Azazel was bound in the desert of Dudael. Azazel, by the book, will be released at the end of time. The book of Jubilees, written a few centuries later, repeats the binding. The book of Jubilees adds a detail. The sons of the Nephilim, after the flood, were taught the forbidden knowledge by the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. The book of Jubilees calls the disembodied spirits mastema. Mastema is the prince of the spirits. The Testament of the 12 Patriarchs in the 1st century BCE names Belial. Belial, by the Testaments, is the prince of lawlessness. Belial will be destroyed at the end. The name Belial will become, in the New Testament, a name for Satan. The Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Community Rule, name 3, Belial, the Prince of Darkness, the Angel of Light who opposes him, and the spirits of the Nephilim, who are the army of Belial. The names survived. The names, by the standards of the tradition, were not metaphors. The names, by the standards of the tradition, were the names of beings. The New Testament treats demons as if they are real. The New Testament does not argue for their existence. The New Testament assumes their existence. The assumption is consistent throughout. Mark 5:1-20, the earliest gospel, gives the most detailed account. A man from the country of the Gerasenes met Jesus on the other side of the sea. The man lived in tombs. The man wore no clothes. The man broke the chains that were used to bind him. The man cut himself with stones. The man, when he saw Jesus from a distance, ran and bowed down. The man cried out, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." The man, the text says, had an unclean spirit. The unclean spirit, when asked its name, answered, "My name is Legion, for we are many." The unclean spirit begged not to be sent out of the country. The unclean spirit begged to be sent into a herd of pigs. Jesus gave permission. The pigs ran down a steep bank into the sea. 2,000 pigs drowned. The Gospels describe Jesus casting out demons more than 30 times. The Gospels name the demons in some accounts. The demons by the Gospels know who Jesus is. The demons by the Gospels beg not to be sent to the abyss. The demons by the Gospels are cast out by name. Modern biblical scholarship reads these passages as evidence of the mental health categories of the ancient world. Modern biblical scholarship reads these passages as a record of a system of belief in which demons were as real as disease, as real as death. Both readings can be true at the same time. By the 2nd century CE, the early Christian writers had begun to map the demons. The map was consistent. The map was detailed. The map, by the standards of the people who drew it, was a description of a real territory. Origen, in the 3rd century, wrote that the demons were organized into ranks. The ranks corresponded to the ranks of the angels. The highest demons were the princes of nations, the same beings the book of Daniel calls the Prince of Persia and the Prince of Greece. Augustine, in the 5th century, gave the formal definition. Demons were angels who fell. The fall happened in 3 stages. The first stage was the fall of Lucifer. The second stage was the fall of the Watchers. The third stage was the fall of every angel who chose rebellion. The demons retained the knowledge of the angels. The demons, having been bound by God, were allowed to test humanity. The medieval church, between the 5th and the 15th centuries, built on Augustine, the medieval church added a hierarchy. The hierarchy is recorded in a grimoire called the Lesser Key of Solomon, or Lemegeton, written in the 17th century, but based on much older material. The Lesser Key lists 72 demons. Each demon has a rank: king, prince, duke, marquis, earl, knight, president. Each demon has a title. Each demon has a power. Each demon has a sigil, a binding sign that constrains the demon and forces it to obey. The hierarchy, by the standards of the modern reader, is a work of fiction. The hierarchy, by the standards of the people who wrote it, was a description of a real chain of command. The chain of command had been communicated to them by people who had met the beings at the top of it. The Catholic Church formalized the ritual of exorcism in 1614. The ritual is in the Rituale Romanum. The ritual requires a priest with special permission, a witness, and 4 signs. The possessed must speak in a language they do not know. The possessed must reveal hidden knowledge. The possessed must display superhuman strength. The possessed must show aversion to holy objects. The cases that were documented by the standards of the modern medical view are not cases of possession. The cases by the modern medical view are cases of dissociative identity disorder, epilepsy, Tourette syndrome, and other conditions the Church in 1614 did not have a framework to describe. The cases, by the standards of the people who conducted the exorcisms, were real. The cases were documented. The cases were events in which a being entered a person and was cast out by a priest. The most documented case in the modern era is the case of Anneliese Michel. Michel was a German student, born in 1952. She began to show signs of possession in 1968. The signs included speaking in tongues, aversion to holy objects, superhuman strength, knowledge of languages she had not studied, and a voice that came from her when she was unconscious. The case was taken to 2 bishops in 1975. The bishops authorized an exorcism. The exorcism lasted from September 1975 to July 1976. Michel died during the exorcism. The cause of death by the medical examiner was malnutrition and dehydration. The parents and the priests were convicted of negligent homicide. The case is not the only one. The case is the most documented. The case, by the standards of the people who were there, is a record of what happened. The Catholic Church revised the Rituale Romanum in 1999. The revised ritual is shorter. The revised ritual requires only the local bishop's permission, not 2 bishops. The revised ritual still requires the 4 signs before the rite is performed. The ritual in either version is a confrontation by name. The priest names the demon. The priest commands the demon to identify itself. The priest commands the demon to leave. The priest uses a formula. The formula, by the Church, was given by Christ. The formula has been used for 1700 years. The casting out, by the standards of the modern psychiatric view, is a ritual. The ritual may have therapeutic effect through the structure of the rite, the social support of the community, and the placebo of authority. The casting out, by the standards of the people who have performed it, is a real confrontation between a person and a being. The being has a name. The name is spoken in a voice that is not the possessed person's. The casting out, in either reading, has happened. The casting out, in either reading, has been described the same way for 2,000 years. The consistency, in either reading, is the part of the question that is hardest to dismiss. The book of Enoch says the spirits of the Nephilim became the demons. The book of Tobit says Asmodeus killed 7 husbands. The book of Jubilees says the spirits of the Nephilim taught the sons of their sons the forbidden arts. The book of Daniel says there is a prince of Persia and a prince of Greece. The Testament of the 12 Patriarchs says Belial is the prince of lawlessness. The Gospels say legion is many. Augustine says the demons are fallen angels. The Lesser Key of Solomon lists 72 by name. The Catholic Church has been casting them out by name for 1700 years. The ritual is still in use. The tradition, by the standards of the tradition, is consistent. The tradition is older than the Bible. The tradition is older than the Gospels. The tradition is older than the medieval church. The tradition is older than the modern medical view. The modern medical view has a framework for what the tradition describes. The framework is incomplete. The framework, by the standards of the tradition, is missing the part the framework says is not there. The missing part, by the standards of the tradition, is the demon. The demon, by the standards of the tradition, is the residue of the Nephilim. The residue, by the book of Enoch, was released when the flood killed the bodies. The residue, by the book of Enoch, has been here since. The residue, by the book of Enoch, is in the people, in the places, in the rituals, in the voices. The book of Enoch, by the standards of the book, is the source. The book is older than the modern view. The book is older than the medieval church. The book is older than the Gospels. The book is, by the standards of the book, the source. The sky will not change. The names will not change. The book will not change. The question will sit in the space between the name and the voice until one of them is the answer you have been waiting for.